Right, we're back on the record. Welcome everyone to this webinar from the IATEFL PronSIG on the 23rd of September 2023. And I'm here to introduce you to our speaker for the day. Today we're very delighted to welcome one of our PronSIG members. We have here this, and you can't see it everything now, which is Tarik Uzun, who will be sharing all his expertise on balancing research and pedagogy lessons learned from an extracurricular pronunciation training for Turkish EFL students. Certificates are provided to anyone who is watching this webinar live, and if you attend the whole webinar, you will automatically receive an email containing your certificate after the webinar has finished. If you're watching the recording, please make your note of your own professional development activity. There will be time for questions at the end of Tarik's talk. And if you want to ask any of them, please make sure you use the Q&A box, which is on your screen here, in the very center here below, so I can keep track of everything and share it with Tarik as we go. If someone has already written the same question, just click on the thumbs up button next to that question to move it higher up the list, rather than writing it again. And if you need any help during the webinar, please contact us in the chat box. So to tell you a little bit more about Tarik, let's go here. Let's get to know more about our partner today. Everything's slow, finishing loading. Okay, so Tarik, right. Tarik Uzun is an instructor of English. Oh, refresh here, sorry. Tarik Uzun is an instructor of English and Turkish as foreign languages, a learning advisor, and independent learning program ILP coordinator at Ankara Yildirim Beyazıt University in Turkey. His research focuses on second language pronunciation, foreign accent, and self-access language learning. Tarik, I think we can only thank you so much for your availability, for being here with us today, and it's over to you now.
Thank you so much, Victor. Let me share my screen, first of all. I guess you can see it now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
All right. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Ankara, Turkey. First of all, it's a real honor for me to be speaking with you today. I had been thinking about this for quite some time as a PronSIG committee member, and now is the time. And I see some familiar names in the participants list, which is making me even more, even happier and a little bit nervous at the same time. I hope you'll have a fun session with me today, and I hope there will be practical takeaways for you in this session. So as you can see the title of my talk, I'm going to talk about our own extracurricular pronunciation training experience that we had last year. And at the same time, I'll touch on how research helped us design and implement this extracurricular training program in my talk. So here is a quick outline for you. In the first place, I'll begin with a literature review. It's not going to be very long, and then I'll talk about English pronunciation for Turkish speakers very briefly, and some research-informed findings. Then I'll present my context to you for a better understanding of where we did what we did. And then the course details will follow, how we designed the course, how we conducted the training program, how learners responded to it, our own observations, and insights about the training program as implementers, and finally some challenges and pitfalls of doing such a training program for EFL learners based on our own experience. Okay, I think we can slowly move on to the real content. Okay, so when we look at pronunciation instruction as a field, as an academic field, we see several factors that are handled as factors that affect the instruction itself. And instructional choices is definitely one of them. And it involves type of instruction, strategies, techniques involved, and other things, along with several other factors, of course, that are important in pronunciation instruction, of course. Another issue that that matters regarding pronunciation learning and teaching is the goals of teaching pronunciation and the goals of instruction, basically. I guess most of the people here are familiar with this distinction between nativeness principle and intelligibility principle. In John Lewis's terms, nativeness principle is about the possibility and desirability of achieving native-like pronunciation in a foreign language. On the other hand, the intelligibility principle regards being understandable, being understood as an ideal goal for learners. And communication can be successful even foreign accents are noticeable or even very strong. When we look at the development of the field of second language pronunciation, especially within the last 30-35 years, we see very limited empirical support for the effectiveness of nativeness principle. However, there's support for this view, as we can probably see in the literature, as several researchers or practitioners say pronunciation instruction should ideally target native-like norms. In terms of empirical evidence or empirical support for nativeness principle, we generally see learners' tendencies, because learners tend to set native-like pronunciation as a goal for themselves, and it's a common thing. In our studies with pre-service teachers, for example, a few years ago, we also found similar findings. They say, we are pre-service teachers, we'll teach English in the future, so we need to be perfect. Perfection means native-like pronunciation for them. On the other hand, there is a much stronger support for intelligibility within the last 30-35 years, especially starting with Tracy Derving and Murray Monroe's studies in the 90s, which clearly demonstrated even accented L2 speech can be intelligible. That's why several researchers and practitioners and also authors tended to set native intelligible pronunciation as a more attainable and reasonable goal for learners. And this is also associated with critical age hypothesis and other theoretical perspectives as well. So should we teach pronunciation explicitly? Well, the answer is yes for me, but there are several misinformed or kind of unhealthy beliefs about teaching pronunciation. I don't know if you have ever had a chance to really read this paper. It's a book chapter actually by John Lewis. So in this chapter, he talks about 4 lies, in his words, about teaching pronunciation and 4 accompanying truths about these lies. And I'm not going to talk about all 4 of them, but lie number 2 is pronunciation will take care of itself, which means you don't need to really worry about it as teachers. So you don't need to spend time on it. And somehow learners will improve their pronunciation. And the truth here is pronunciation teaching works. And the reasons for this is empirical evidence, again. several studies point out that if you teach pronunciation effectively, you'll reach successful outcomes with your efforts. Another lie: teachers cannot teach pronunciation, and the truth is there's always a way to teach pronunciation. And to explain this truth, he proposes two arguments. First, pronunciation could be integrated into different language skills to make it more meaningful, especially listening and speaking. And time restrictions, which is a commonly reported problem for teachers regarding pronunciation teaching, can be overcome if targets are prioritized, rather than trying to teach or address every speech feature in the target language. Isabel Darcy lists 3 factors for neglecting pronunciation instruction here, and again, time constraints is number 1. I don't have time to teach pronunciation. Methodological considerations is another reason. I don't know how to teach pronunciation. And curricular and pedagogical priorities is number 3 here. The point here is I have other things to worry about, something more important than teaching pronunciation. So let's prioritize teaching targets. This actually comes with intelligibility-based instruction perspectives. The point here about intelligibility-based teaching is you don't need to teach everything. You should prioritize your teaching targets, but according to what? We see a couple of things here, some frameworks and guidelines, and one of them could be functional load hypothesis, which wasn't actually meant to be in the first place a framework to guide people to teach for intelligibility. It refers to a measure of the number of minimal pairs which can be found for a given opposition. So we have high functional load and low functional load minimal pairs, depending on how often they appear in English words. So for example, PB difference, according to Adam Brown's list, is a high functional load minimal pair, distinguishing a very high number of words in English, like pin bin. So it is of a greater importance than, for example, f and th, which is only number 1, while the difference was number 10. So why worry so much about trying to teach the difference between f and th according to this framework, while PB is more important? So this is the basic idea. You may already be familiar with functional load hypothesis. Jennifer Jenkins and Lingua Franca Core is probably one of the most influential frameworks in this regard. And she listed core and non-core speech features for international intelligibility, especially for international communication between non-native speakers. And Tracy Derving and Mary Munro listed focus priorities in 2015, and John Lewis listed guidelines for intelligibility-based instruction in 2018. There are some commonalities between the two, also some unique items in their lists. So they they list different focus priorities on certain speech aspects, and the common thing between the two is they list features associated with intelligibility, comprehensibility, in other words, the ease or difficulty of understanding, and communication. So they say features associated with intelligibility, comprehensibility, and successful communication should be prioritized in teaching. And the frequent errors of learners, again, should be prioritized. And of course, there are some specific features, as I said before. For example, John Lewis says high functional load minimal pairs should be prioritized. Tracy Derving and Mary Munro say individualized assessment is a priority in pronunciation instruction, and such features that are unique to each framework. Okay, so let me take you to Turkish research context a little bit. So what is happening in pronunciation research in Turkey? Well, we see, unfortunately, probably similar to many other research contexts, it's not the most popular research field in the country. There are very few dedicated pronunciation researchers. And we see most studies conducted with Turkish learners or Turkish speakers of English aim to reach out to an account of common pronunciation errors and problematic sounds for them. And these are the common terminology at the same time, problematic sounds. And we see such studies generally target segmentals rather than supersegmentals. Of course, we cannot deny the importance of such work, but we don't know much about speakers' intelligibility or features that affect their intelligibility or comprehensibility or their accent in English based on empirical evidence. Okay, seeing this research gap back in 2016, I guess, the first times, we were trying to design my doctoral work, and we started with similar goals, but at the same time, slightly different targets for my research. So again, similarly, we wanted to reach an account of Turkish pre-service English teachers who we can consider speak with a higher level of English proficiency. Their common pronunciation errors, okay, and then to what extent these errors influence their intelligibility in English in their spoken productions. And to achieve this goal, in the first step, we collected data with error detection by expert listeners using Think Aloud protocol and an intelligibility research with naive listeners that followed. So this research was initiated, completed, and completed at Ankara University with my dear supervisor Sıla, if she's here. Hi, Sıla. And the final research phase was conducted at Iowa State University. The listeners phase, the main bulk of the research actually, under the academic advisory and mentorship of Dr. John Levis. And if he's here, hi, John. And this whole research was supported by Fulbright Turkey, Turkish Fulbright Education Commission. Okay, so what did we find? We found orthographic influence as a major factor for pronunciation errors of Turkish speakers because Turkish basically employs a transparent orthography where there's a very high level of sound letter correspondence, and Turkish speakers of English expect something similar in English, and they tend to pronounce every single letter as they appear in English. And mispronunciations of schwa and t substitutions resulted in the largest numbers of errors. However, we found that they had quite minor impacts on their intelligibility. And schwa actually is considered as a problematic sound in such studies conducted in Turkish research context without clear references to reduced intelligibility. And we see t substitutions as a moderate strength of minimal pairs according to functional lot hypothesis. So they don't really matter too much in our case as a pronunciation target, as I'm also going to talk about. So segmental errors were more common in my research findings, and incorrect stress placement was the most common type of suprasegmental errors. And pronunciation errors with the following characteristics were observed in the reduced intelligibility error sites quite commonly. Tense lax vowel substitutions like e, u, u. So tense lax vowel substitutions means, by the way, long and short vowels in another terminology. And mispronunciations of diphthongs, consonant cluster issues like schwa insertion, schwa deletion, incorrect stress placement, and multiple errors occurring within a single word. For example, in some words, expert listeners identified errors like multiple errors in one single word or utterance, like two segmental errors or one segmental error and stress error at the same time. Okay, so this was my dissertation, which I completed in 2019. And the dissertation was in Turkish, and a condensed version of this study was published at Mixed Journal. You may check this publication out. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'll share with you my contact details at the end of my talk. Okay, so let me share with you some context details from where I work, where I'm based. I'm based at Ankara Yıldırım Beyazıt University. So it's a relatively new school, founded in 2011. There are 15 faculties, including engineering, medicine, as you can see, different fields. And one critical thing is we offer English medium instruction in most of our faculties. That's why School of Foreign Languages is a very important body for the university. It offers 1 year skill-based and CFR-oriented English classes, pre-faculty English classes for 1 year. So we prepare students for their academic lives in terms of English language skills. So they have to finish this prep year to be able to start their academic studies. So we start every year with around 2,000 prep school students in the SFL and with around 100 instructors. So we normally teach regular English classes as EFL, English as a foreign language, and we use regular course books in our classes, and our course books contain pronunciation boxes. And we are expected to teach pronunciation. These pronunciation targets are sometimes considered optional, marked optional, sometimes must. Another body, Learning and Teaching Center, LTC, serves the whole university with different types of English courses, different types of courses to improve the quality of instruction. And Independent Learning Center, the ILC, is the self-access center of the School of Foreign Languages. It's now integrated with the LTC. So now the LTC is a physical body and the ILC is a part of it. So one function of the LTC is also to offer self-access services to our students at the School of Foreign Languages. And if you want to learn more about our services, our activities, you can check out our Instagram accounts. So I can confidently say we have an extensive amount of experience with self-access management, and several academic studies came out of the ILC in particular. And I have been the coordinator of the Self-Access Center, the ILC, for the last 10 years. So as part of our regular ILC self-access activities, we offer regular extracurricular speaking practice sessions to our students, informative workshop sessions, daily self-access services in terms of resource management, and also some longer-term training programs for 3, 4, 5 weeks. And they are all free to our students. There is also the LAP, Learning Advisory Program, to help learners better manage their own learning. And there's also a student mentorship program to create healthy links with students in different faculties. And they're also operated at the LTC. So as you can see, a lot is going on at the LTC, I'm sorry. So this is the physical space. You see the self-access space, the ILC space of the LTC here. You see some pictures from our fun and colorful activities. Sometimes our activities are managed by students only, no teachers involved. We sometimes offer informative workshop sessions, more serious activities, sometimes very colorful, fun, and sometimes cultural gatherings. As you can see, people are dancing, and very colorful and lively speaking activities. They are all extracurricular. Okay, so you saw our context, and we asked ourselves these two critical questions last year. Can a tailored extracurricular pronunciation training program be a useful option in pronunciation instruction? Because this is not something that is frequently discussed in the academic literature. The, you know, one of the basic focus areas is how to integrate it into our regular classroom teaching, our curricula, for example. Why not offer it as a training program? And can pronunciation training be a good add-on to self-access based extracurricular pronunciation extracurricular activities? And the answer to these questions was, why not give it a try? Let's try and see. Okay. Okay, so we set out our journey of designing this program, but we were a little bit lucky because a few years ago, with Sinem Sonsaat Hegelheimer, you may be familiar with her name, we taught a listening and pronunciation course at TED University in Ankara again to English language teaching students who were pre-service English teachers. So when they graduate, they're officially entitled as English teachers. And it was a course targeting language major students, basically, mostly with a Turkish L1 background, and we can expect them to be higher level English proficiencies, to be at a higher level English proficiency, and a good understanding of second language acquisition because of their classes. So they had a different mindset than our target group at the School of Foreign Languages and LTC. So it followed a 14-week course plan, and we taught segmentals and suprasegmentals extensively with perception and production activities, a lot of them. Introductory level phonetics and phonology content, comprehensive IPA presentations, and at the same time, we expected them to use the alphabet effectively and with a lot of meta language. So based on this course content, basically, but with a target group, a target group with a lot of different features, we designed a new course plan, a simplified, modified, and considerably shortened course plan for our pre-faculty, prep students coming from several different fields and students who will never teach English. So we designed a 4-week extracurricular free pronunciation training program named English Pronunciation Class. Me with my dear colleague Hatice Karaslan from IATEFL and LTC, we were the trainers, and our colleague at Kanda University of International Studies in Tokyo, Japan, Amelia Yarwood, the three of us created a small research group together, but we taught the classes with Hatice in our context. So it was a face-to-face, completely free and voluntary training program, and it was only open to our students because it was face-to-face. We created 2 groups with 20 available seats in each group, with morning and afternoon session options, considering our students' regular class hours so that they could attend in their free time. We asked them to register via electronic forms. the course was open to B1 level students and above because it wouldn't be possible for lower level students to really follow us easily during the course. We offered 2 hours of instruction, pronunciation training per week in 4 weeks, with a total of 8 hours of dedicated pronunciation training. And we also promised to give students a certificate of completion if they attend at least 3 weeks coursework out of 4 weeks. We gave them the certificates as promised. So all seats in 2 sessions, which means 40 seats, were booked in less than 2 days. 29 students started in week 1 and 25 students received the certificate. So as you can see, not everyone who signed up for it came to the course, which is actually quite possible in extracurricular training programs based on our own experience from the previous years. But the ones who started, basically, most of them completed the program, which was a good sign or a good message for us. You may be questioning why 4 weeks is the duration of the course. Again, based on our own experience, training programs longer than 4 weeks, sometimes even 3 weeks, are quite problematic because students tend to leave such training programs because there is no must for them. It's not a part of their regular classwork. It's just totally optional. So if someone comes to you in such a long-term program and stays with you, this is really nice because they are there to learn something. The only additional benefit for them was a certificate. Okay, but I don't know, like, what kind of benefits this certificate can bring to them to, for example, law student 5 years later when they graduate. The inner motivation matters here a lot, I think. And apparently, we were good at this, maintaining this motivation. And a quick note, by the way, we shared our poster, which is here, by the way. Oh, no, okay. I'll get to the poster later. So we shared our poster when we started this program on social media, just to show off a little bit. And interestingly, some people contacted me. One person posted and one person contacted me directly and asked if it was possible to attend this program. I said, no, unfortunately, but this international interest in pronunciation training was also a good sign, I think, for pronunciation practitioners and researchers at the same time, because we people dealing with pronunciation are a little bit suspicious about this kind of interest, and I wasn't expecting this, to be honest, and it really motivated us. So a little bit more technical details here. So in terms of course design, we followed Garnier's 9 events of instruction as guiding principles. I'm not going to go into detail, but basically, starting with the publicity of the event till the assignment phase, we try to follow these 9 phases to guide us regarding the instructional steps and decisions. We tried to, for example, explain objectives with our syllabus. We gave each student a syllabus with all the necessary details, objectives, and everything. We tried to elicit performance from them and other details as well. And I'm going to reflect on this at the end of my talk as well, a little bit. So we can define our instructional approach to teaching as form-focused instruction. So you may consider this as explicit, direct pronunciation instruction to people who are never going to teach pronunciation, and who will basically benefit from this as part of their learning English journey. We covered both vowels and consonants, segmentals and suprasegmentals, word stress, thought grouping and pausing, of course, and final intonation patterns with references to meaning. We tried to highlight the importance of and the value of pronunciation in successful communication rather than um, highlighting the importance of native-like norms or any native speaker variety, British, American, whatever. But instead, we highlighted the importance of uh, mispronunciations and correct pronunciations, and how some mispronunciations or difficult or comprehensibility issues might cause misunderstandings or confusions on the part of the listeners or their interlocutors in communication or spoken interactions. And also, we highlighted the normality and acceptability of accented speech in communication in the training, throughout the training. And we used in-class presentations, guided and semi-guided in-class practice, individual pair work activities as well, and some out-of-class assignments. We used a very limited amount of meta-language, and we didn't teach IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet, because it would confuse them. Based on my experience with pre-service English teachers, it used to take them a lot of time to really master the alphabet and effectively use it. So in such a limited amount of time of instruction, 8 weeks only, it would probably confuse them. We only showed a couple of symbols to create curiosity, and we sometimes offer one-off IPA workshops as well in our center. So this is our very cool poster that we ourselves designed. I hope you like it. And these are the resources that we used. We used excerpts from Well Said and some PronSIG puzzles, pronunciation puzzles for both in-class work and assignments. We assigned post-test perception tasks and some recording assignments, which involved basically read-aloud tasks, and some handouts to be used for in and out of class work as well. And this is our 4-week syllabus. As you can see, we started with the very basics, moved on with vowels and consonants in English. Then we introduced syllable structure in English, word stress. Then we finalized with thought groups, pausing, and final intonation patterns at the end of week 4. Okay, some more information about the syllabus. So, okay, vowels and consonants, perfect, but it's a huge topic, basically. Normally, if I have to teach a more comprehensive course, it takes at least 3-4 weeks of a highly dedicated training with a lot of activities. So we had to prioritize our teaching targets, and we basically looked at L1-induced errors, which was reported to negatively affect Turkish speakers' intelligibility in English. And we tried to skip or not place too much emphasis on other potential speech targets that do not seem to have such important impacts. And we had only one reference point, my study. I hope there will be more in the future. And we basically focused on these speech targets. Let me be more specific, because this audience will probably be interested in finding out more about it. So we placed extra emphasis and particular focus on tense and lax vowel differences and certain sound comparisons which seem to affect meaning and intelligibility. as in, for example, O versus A, note, not, okay? And minimal pair sound discrimination tasks, for example, which you can find in well said. Same, different. Do you hear the same thing or different things? Things, for example, rubber, rubber. Do you hear the same thing or different things? So there are such tasks. So for in terms of perception, with this kind of tasks, in terms of more production, in addition to eliciting some content and some answers from them, again, in well said, you can find this kind of more communicative, conversation-based activities for pair work. So you assign the role of student A to one student. The student says, for example, is that a dog? So the student B here is supposed to hear the right, understand the word correctly, which is the animal, and respond accordingly. The answer should be yes, it is barking at us. So this kind of activities are found in well said again, and they came really handy. Final R for Turkish speakers, which becomes fricative and devoiced. So, okay, so let me explain this. So in Turkish, when a word ends, when an utterance basically ends with a r, the r sound, we tend to pronounce it as a hissing sound. So you would probably hear it as, okay. So if I say var, for example, there is in Turkish, you would hear this word as var. So in my study, in my research, we found that Turkish speakers tend to transfer this into English words, which tended to influence their intelligibility. So we raised awareness on this sound, and we showed a couple of examples. And interestingly, they had never noticed this before. And some students even came to me and said they cannot get rid of this obsession now because they can't speak Turkish comfortably and they don't want to make this sound. So this is, of course, the natural way of pronouncing it in Turkish is with this fricative and devoiced version. But in English, yes, they should be more careful, I guess. Consonant clusters, schwa insertion, schwa deletion, as I said before, silent letters. It's a unique topic directly during the training because Turkish orthography gets in the way, as I explained earlier. In terms of suprasegmentals, we first taught how to count syllables in English, how vowels work, how schwa works, and stressed syllables, unstressed syllables. First stress in numbers, teen and t, directly related to meaning making and highly practical. Thought grouping and why time deposits matter for intelligible and comprehensible speech. And finally, basic final intonation patterns for statements, WH and yes/no questions, and how rise and fall patterns may affect meaning. Okay, finally, these are the winners, and these are some end of the course memories with smiling faces with our dear students. Okay, let me share with you a couple of pieces of feedback from learners at this point. So these are some general comments from the students. Okay, so let me go over them with a quick analysis here. As you can see, especially the red keywords, there are certain references to misunderstandings in students' feedback, confusions, or difficulties in communication. Apparently, our training raised their awareness about such issues and their relationships with their connections with pronunciation, which is actually something that we designed in the first place, that we thought about in the first place. They tended to use some speech phenomena, some technical vocabulary, no matter how much we try to stay away from technical vocabulary, such as pausing, stress, intonation, etc. Um, this is also very important because I really doubt how a student would explain the difference between stress and intonation. So apparently they raised awareness, I mean, in the first place without getting such a training. So I think this training helped them better understand speech phenomena as well, which wasn't actually our target in the first place again. And they frequently referred to their improvements and gains in the course, which was again pretty nice. In terms of content and tasks that we used, as you can see the keywords again, effective, interactive, energetic, feeling energetic, new, interesting, fun, etc. Good. For teachers, we received positive feedback again, like being approachable, knowledgeable, inclusive, being shy in the first place, then feeling energized and benefiting a lot. These are important because learning pronunciation in a target language, especially in English, may be quite stressful for some students, but we try to hold quite a positive attitude to our students and their errors and did not really put any pressure on our students to make them feel uncomfortable. Okay, and finally, learning goals after the training. Several students highlighted their desires of receiving further training, goals of attaining a native speaker accent, despite our efforts to direct their attention to more intelligible pronunciation. Some students still highlighted their interest about attaining a native speaker accent, TV series, and their desires, as we can see here, to better understand TV series, which came really interesting to me. TV series and learning pronunciation. Apparently, streaming services are affecting them quite a lot, and their perceived needs for further pronunciation practice, having received the training program. So our observed benefits regarding the training. So I think this was just an example that demonstrates that pronunciation can and should be taught, and pronunciation instruction can attract learners' attention if done properly, and if you meet their expectations successfully. And I think this experience really encouraged us a lot to repeat the program with some necessary modifications and do some follow-up courses as some students requested, and different even target audiences, maybe teachers in the future. One-off workshops or longer-term training programs for pronunciation instruction could surely be a useful addition for self-access centers because we received several positive feedback from learners in this regard as well. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, some students still want to sound like native speakers, which is fine. What we can do is only encourage them to go ahead, but at the same time, it's useful for them to be aware that they don't have to be. They don't have to sound like native speakers. We also observed several positive impacts on self-confidence and speaking anxiety. This is a study in progress on emotions, beliefs, and auto-identity based on this teaching experience, this training experience. It is a study in progress, and I hope it'll be out in the near future. And I hope we'll be able to share it in the near future with you. A couple of challenges and pitfalls. I'm trying to wrap this up. I hope I'm not too late. So I have to highlight that such a course may not be suitable for every student. This is normal. Some of your students may be interested in more academic, more written language, but in our case, this wasn't the case because only the interested people signed up for it. Self-access centers, learning and teaching centers, extracurricular activity units of such training of language institutions, could be bodies to organize such training programs. But we should remember that such a program will require teaching hours of teachers, physical spaces, and not all institutions may be willing to do this. And another very important point is you need teachers, motivated, interested teachers with sufficient background knowledge to teach pronunciation for such a training program. And as we can see in especially teacher cognition research, not all teachers are really ready or willing to teach pronunciation in their classes. Exposure and opportunities were limited, and this is, I think, a challenge for us in such a program. And we try to encourage out of class practice. So could it be longer? I don't think so for an extracurricular program. If we were to do it again, I guess we would do a 4-week program and finish it there and start another 4-week program with those interested. Otherwise, as I said, it's highly likely that you'll lose many of your students for different reasons. In our case, out-of-class assignments were not effectively turned in because we had no control over the students' performance. There could be additional criteria for getting a certificate, I think, as a solution for this problem. So in Garnier's 9 events of instruction, I think we didn't successfully achieve a performance assessment and retention because assignments were a part of this. I think we should find alternative assessment methods or more effective assessment procedures, and definitely individualized assessment could be an option here. I'm wrapping it up. Extracurricular pronunciation training may not be the best or the most feasible option. As you can see, there are several challenges as well, but it could be a useful alternative to regular classroom teaching. And I'd like to underline at this point that we are open for collaborative projects on our end on pronunciation research and instruction. These are my references, page 1 and page 2. Before wrapping it up, I'd like to thank my dear colleagues, Hatice Karaslan and Amelia Yarwood, for being in this small but effective research group. Sinem Sonsa Tegelheimer, my dear friends at IATEFL PronSIG committee for spending so much time and energy on this, and Fulbright Turkey once again for supporting my time at Iowa State University in 2017 and 18 academic year. And I'd be happy to hear your questions. I'm sorry if I exceeded my time limits.
Don't worry. Thank you so much, Tarik, for all your time
My pleasure.
and the topic you've brought to us. Everyone, we will now have some minutes for the questions. And apologies if you don't get through all of them, but let's hope we have some. Sorry, Tarik, what did you say?
I think that would request for references. So I went back to the second page of the references. I did. Okay, cool.
Right. In the meantime, there's a question here by Ganja Ram Podel. Teaching pronunciation is my area of interest. However, I always have a question in mind. Can a no-native speaker speak like a native speaker? How can it be possible without practicing in a lab?
Well, several academic studies conclude that it is technically very hard. And that's why intelligibility-based pronunciation instruction became so meaningful for practitioners. And again, there are several studies, there are several perspectives regarding critical age hypothesis. So I think it's really hard. It's not technically impossible, but in a non-native speaker community, it's quite hard. Exposure must be really intense, and that learner needs to be very highly motivated. And learning process for that learner should involve both in and out of class learning, I guess.
Absolutely. There's a question about the name of the country. My question is about pronunciation, but specifically about the pronunciation of Turkey in English. I was telling some students about the request to change the name of the country from Turkey to Turkey, but I'm still not sure what pronunciation to teach them regarding that word. What's your take on it?
So I'm still not sure on what pronunciation to teach them regarding that word. Um, so I think it's useful to teach both of them. I'm basically quite used to using Turkey instead of Turkey. I think students should be aware of both of them because even Turkish speakers are somewhat confused with the two, the use of the two. I would teach both of them, to be honest.
Hmm. And can you tell us a little bit more about the post-test given for homework in week 1 of your course, Tarik?
Um, so post test can be accessed for free, and they are perception tasks. And the beginning week post test assignments were basically on vowels and consonants, and we gave them to help them get used to perception tasks a little bit. Because, for example, in the first place, we started a diagnostic test, which came from the famous pronunciation course material, Ship or Sheep. But they had quite difficult times because they had never done a perception test before. So in our case, perception tasks aim to help them distinguish between sounds, vowels, and consonants, and to really start from micro listening in the first place, then move on to macro listening.
Right. We have a question now from Alev Ozekin. In the course books, were there any given instruction on using explicit body language or hand gestures? And if not, did you include any tactile kinesthetic depictions to enhance the learning effects?
Not something in particular. I don't remember such content from the course material that we used. And I think I used such tactile and kinesthetic depictions with word stress because it usually helps. And using your hands to show the stressed syllables. Sometimes, standing up and sitting down to show what is like which syllable is stressed, which one is unstressed, and for final intonation patterns again. I use my hands a lot to show the rising and falling intonation. Otherwise, I mean, it was not systematic. Maybe we should, but yeah, this is something that I think my habit of using them basically. But yeah, I mean, they could be integrated into teaching more systematically. I think again, there's a request for seeing the
Or your
first page
references?
this time.
Yeah, the first
Okay,
page of
let me.
references.
Okay,
And
here,
possibly as
here
a
it is.
last, unfortunately, as a last question, because we still have the announcements and lots of interesting discussions are coming through, but maybe this one can be interesting. All of them, but following the order, everybody. But anyway, so it's
Mm-hmm.
by Erhard Hosinpur. In light of the two theories regarding the acquisition of pronunciation skills, as you mentioned in the presentation, native likeness versus intelligibility, do you believe that perspective that striving for native-like pronunciation, or at least making a concerted effort to approximate native speech, is a superior and overarching objective compared to more intelligibility? Or do you maintain a relatively indifferent stance towards distinguishing between these two approaches?
I try to show students that it's quite normal to be accented, and if they want to sound like native speakers, it is totally fine. I mean, this is basically my experience, my approach here. Our students, when they come to us in the first place, generally tend to consider that they need to sound like native speakers. They have to do this, which put, in my observations, a little bit of pressure on them, which is actually reported in several academic studies as well. So my approach is basically showing them that intelligibility is a sufficient target for them. But if they still want to, and I have students like this in this training program, I had one very good student who insistently said that he wanted to speak British accent. At the end of the program, he still insisted that he wanted to speak like a British English native speaker. And this shows that he is dedicated to this goal. And I showed him some resources, some materials to work on this this variety, this accent. But my perspective is basically, I'm not, in general, I'm not holding an objective perspective. I'm more on the intelligibility side. But this doesn't mean that I work a lot on my own pronunciation to be a good model for my students, to stay away from errors as much as possible. But this doesn't mean that I am, as their teacher, trying to show them a model of any certain model of English pronunciation.
There's far more to it, right? It's a very complex area for us anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Tarik, that's all we believe we have time for. Thank you again for your time and for being here with us today. And everybody, if sorry, and Tarik, again, just thank you so much for that.
Teşekkürler. Thank you in Turkish. So you can see my email addresses here, and I can be found in social media as well. And I'd be happy if you could contact me and share with me your feedback and insights. I hope this was a useful and practical session for everyone.
Absolutely. Everybody, just some final messages for us here. Just a second. Yep. Because in case you want to hear more about it, we've been busy. We're going to continue being very busy here. We have some very interesting updates to give you. First off is our beloved PronSIG conference coming on 14th of October. There you have it. We if you click on this link that you see there, you'll be able to join us. I'm also going to share the links here. So many tabs. Okay. Just a second. Everyone, you have access to the links. Yeah. We have our PronSIG conference on the 14th of October. We have announced the speakers, and I'd like to draw your attention to our plenary speakers. We have Giedre Balchitatev opening the event, and with the closing with Jane Setter, the topic being on music and intonation. We also have, you might have heard that we are going to have the IATEFL conference in Brighton next year. So you can also look for information that on IATEFL's page. And that's not all. We've also had a recent issue on Speak Out, our yearly journal. We're already on issue number 69, and you can find lots of information about it on our website if you want to know more about how to get access to the papers, and there's some access to a few references for you if you're interested. So if you feel it's worth your reading, I'm sure you really enjoy everything that we have been seeing there. It's a very rich paper for us. And last but not least, again, just officially saying thank you so much to Tarik for being here with us, and to everyone attending this session. And before you go, as we always ask you, if you're not a member of PronSIG, as you can see from our slide, with annual membership to IATEFL, you can choose, I'm sorry, you can choose to become a member of our SIG. And as a member, you can get access to great benefits, including full access to our members only journal Speak Out, which is published twice a year, reduced price entry to our conferences, free entry to events such as this. This one was free, but you usually have this book club. That's why I got them confused. And the ability to apply for PronSIG scholarships. By the way, our scholarship winner has had her article published now, a Speak Out issue. So it's also interesting to read her. But better than this, you'll be joining an amazing community of teachers who are passionate about the subject and rubbing shoulders with experts such as Tarik himself. And alternatively, if you have something to contribute, please get in touch. We're looking for webinar content for 2024 already and beyond. So email us at pronsig@iatefl.org to discuss your ideas with us further. And I just need to share one last thing, which is our socials. Just like Tarik, we're also very big on socials. Let me just share with you guys here on the chat. A second. Oh, sorry. Here we go. So we have been, here we are. There we go. Thank you, Gemma, for sharing the email. Here are our socials. And everyone, we will see you again if you join us for our conference in October. And you'll hear from us very soon. So thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you another time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Stop the recording.